So tonight, welcome. Tonight our topic is an introduction to identifying wildflowers. And I know there's apps out there on your phones that you can use. You just take a picture and it'll tell you what you're looking at. But my personal opinion is that if you let a machine do all the thinking for you, you lose the ability to notice and differentiate details. And so what I'm going to be sharing with you tonight is some of the key things to notice yourself so that you yourself can identify the plants that you're seeing. So think what to record in the field so that you can identify it back home using a field guide or other tools. So there's a lot of different plant families. I'm not an expert. Two, I'm not going to try and teach you everything about plants tonight or every plant family there is. I'm going to give kind of a broad overview of some things to look for. And one of those is the fact that each plant family shares a group of characteristics that can be used to identify plants within that family. And for me, I found the easiest of those is the shape of their flowers. And so that's what I focus on here. So when you're keying out a flower, one of the first steps is to determine whether it has regular or irregular flowers. And regular flowers basically means that all of the flower petals are the same shape and size. An irregular flower can look pretty symmetrical. It can look like a regular flower, but maybe some of the petals are larger or smaller than others, or they have other characteristics that make them a little different. So regular flowers can have petals anywhere from 3 to what appears to be hundreds, and anything above 7 is typically referred to as numerous. And when you're journaling these flowers, you want to make sure that you're recording the number and the color of the petals as well as their shape. Some flower petals are separate pieces, like the avens here, the yellow flower in the center. Others are fused, like the petals of that onion in the middle right, kind of that lavender white set of flowers. And so that's another characteristic that you want to record. And when you're sketching your flower, it's often a good idea to sketch a front view as well as a side view, because a side view can help you show if those petals are fused. Let me know if I'm going too fast too. I feel like I'm zooming through this. So those are examples of regular flowers, irregular flowers. And I wanted to I was thinking about this delphinium, Heather, when you were mentioning your favorite color, because they reminded me of that when you shared your.
I like it.
Thing.
I also like the columbine next to it.
Yeah. So the irregular flowers can come in a variety of shapes, as you can see here, including some that look like regular flowers, like the purple one in the center. It just has 5 petals that look all the same. But when you see it from the side, the delphinium there in the center, you can see that it also has some fused petals that come out. I call that a wizard's cap. So it's a nectar well. So this plant and others like it, like columbine, are adapted to certain pollinators that have longer tongues. So say a hummingbird, right? So this flower is more adapted to pollinators like a hummingbird that can reach deep into the nectar well to collect that prize. And an interesting thing about these plants with the nectar wells is that other pollinators have learned how to bypass the system, and they'll just go back there and cut through the petal and drink the nectar from the rear instead of going in from the front as nature intended. Yeah, so those are some examples of irregular flowers. So sometimes the flowers are so similar that other characteristics are necessary to identify the plants. And so the aster family is a great example. There's a lot of different flowers that look like dandelion, but they're not. And so in your journals, it's also a good idea to capture other data about the plant. Just to avoid frustrations later in case there is a look-alike. And so some of the things that you want to capture are whether it's a monocot or a dicot. And this attribute's not going to vary from family to family. So if you're looking at all these different asters, they're all going to be dicots. A monocot is basically, it's a plant that when it first hatches or sprouts from its seed has one seed leaf. A dicot, when it hatches, it has two seed leaves. That's the basic difference between these two groups of plants. And the dicots have been around longer. The monocots are a more recent adaptation, and there's much fewer monocots as a result. They haven't been around as long. Let's see. So monocots have parallel leaf veins. You can see here in this Solomon seal or false Solomon seal on the left that all those veins are running parallel to each other. You don't see any of the cross hatching like you do in the dicots. So this image on the right, you can see that the veins have more of a net pattern to them. What else do I want to say about this? So flowering, most of it, like I said, most of the plants that exist on Earth are in the dicot class, but the grasses, sedges, rushes, as well as arrowheads like wabato, lilies, irises, and orchids, they're all in the monocot class. So something that you can capture pretty quickly with a sketch is the leaf arrangement on the plant. So there's 4 different leaf arrangements. Opposite means that the leaves are coming out opposite to each other on the stem. Alternate means that they're altered like, I think of like a ladder, you know, like if you were climbing up. I don't know what those kind of ladders are called, where the pole's in the center and the handles are on the outside. That's what I think of with alternate. Basal just means that the leaves only grow at the base of the plant, so close to the ground. And then whorled means that there's more than one. It's basically opposite, but they go all the way around the plant instead of just one on each side. And so with whorled, you'll have numerous leaves all around the plant. There's also you can also distinguish between simple and compound. So simple means that each leaf stalk has a single leaf on it. Compound means each leaf stalk has numerous leaflets on it. And so this elderberry here on the left, you can see that there's a stalk with 7 leaves on it. Another thing to capture is the shape of the leaf. There's a lot of different names for different shapes, but here are some basic ones. You've got entire, which means that there is no texture. The edge of the leaf is just a single line. There's no teeth to it. It's the opposite of toothed. So entire, there's, I can't think of the word. Anyway, you can see the picture. I apologize, my brain.
Smooth.
Say it again.
It's smooth.
Yes, it has a smooth edge. Thank you. And then toothed means that the edge is jagged. And then lobed, it's you think of that. Basically, each of these steps is taking that edge shape in deeper. So lobed is the cuts in the leaf go in more deeply into the leaf, and then divided is when it's almost to the point of being separate leaflets, like in this fern, but this is all one single leaf. Another detail to capture is the characteristics of the stem. And so here are just a few examples, but not represented on this slide is the height. And so basically, how tall is the plant, or how long is it if it lays along the ground? Description of the type of stem. So is it woody or is it herbaceous? Herbaceous basically just means that it's a green plant, you know, like you could bend the stalk easily. It doesn't have any of that compound that makes a woody stem, which is also left my brain. You can describe the shape of it, the cross sections. So most stems are round if you were to cut them. but some, like in the mint family, are square. So if you look at this one with the purple or the pink flowers, it's kind of hard to see if you're not already familiar with it, but it's easier to see towards the bottom. There's kind of angles. So if you had the stem in your fingers, it's actually square looking at it cross section. What else? The color. So some stems are red, some are green, some are brown, like are in these examples. In fact, the stem color can help you identify some poisonous plants like the water hemlock, which can actually be poisonous just to handle it, have it touching your skin. Bud arrangement. So this is similar to this slide here where we're talking about opposite and alternate. So if you look at the bud arrangement or the branching pattern of the stem, texture. So this one on the left has, it's woody and then the wood's kind of flaking off a bit. The next one in is hairy. And this is cow parsnip. Those hairs actually have a chemical in them that's photoreactive. So if you're working around cow parsnip, you want to wear long sleeves and gloves because some people are allergic to that and they have a severe reaction. So when the toxin gets in your skin and then the sun hits it, it can create these boils and blisters. Let's see what else. Smooth. There's also waxy. Some plants have a kind of a waxy texture. And then another thing is to look at what accessories does the stem have. And there's 3 types of accessories. There's thorns, prickles, or spines. Thorns are basically like part of the stem of the plant, and so they're comprised of the same material as the stem. They're actually growing from the stem itself. Spines are leaf tissue. And so if you are looking at something like a cactus, those spines are all made out of, they would basically be leaves if it was another type of plant. And then prickles are what we have most of around here. And that would be like what you see on this salmonberry stem here or on a rose bush or blackberries. Basically stems or prickles are pokey things that can be pulled right off. They're just a skin growth on the plant as opposed to being structural. I'm not familiar with any plants around here that have spines, but some examples of plants that have thorns would be like crabapple or hawthorn. So basically some trees. And you know when you're dealing with a spine as opposed to a prickle because the spine won't give up. It doesn't let go. Like if you hook into a spine, you're attached to the tree until you unhook yourself from the spine because the spine is structurally part of the tree. All right, so.
Question.
Yes.
Did you say that hawthorn was an example of a spined tree here, or that it was an example of a prickled? Because how you?
Oh, that's
okay. Go ahead.
And I may have said it wrong. So hawthorn and crabapple are, to my understanding, thorns. They have thorns, which is a part of the stem. So they're growing from the branch itself, like the interior part of the branch, as opposed to on the surface, like a prickle. That makes sense?
It does. I just I guess that I have questions. I'll ponder that. I'll mull that over in my head more, I guess. Okay. I guess it really would help to know if we have anything here that is then spined, because my hawthorn, I definitely feel like it's spined every time.
As opposed to thorns. Okay.
Yeah,
so
I would think a spine might be like devil's club.
Yeah, let me think about that. It's been a long time since I've hooked into a devil's club. I can't remember what it feels. Yeah.
It only takes once.
Yeah. Well, I know not to grab them again. The one I met, my first one was on a slope and I was falling. That was unfortunate. No, that I'm glad you bring that up, Heather, because honestly, I mean, I get a little bit confused about this and I can't find something that just says, yes, this plant has spines, prickles, or thorns. This plant has spines, prickles, or thorns. And so when I was researching for this, I came to the conclusion that crabapple and hawthorn are thorns, but that doesn't mean I'm correct. So yeah, if you find something that shows, you know, like that says something else, please share it with me so that I can update my internal understanding of the plant. I still get a bit, I mean, I understand prickles, but thorns and spines, I still get a little confused on. Like I've got a cherry tree out here that has spines and I think they're a leaf. I mean, what, yeah, I think they're spines, but I'm not sure because I don't know how to tell the difference myself. So, yeah, I need to do more research on that. Okay, so to recap, you want to make sure that you gather data about 3 parts of the plant: the flower, the leaves, and the stem. But if you're in a hurry, usually getting detailed information on the flower will be good enough to identify the plant. It just might take you a little bit longer. But oh dear, I am sorry about this. I'm not doing good with my words tonight. My recall, I mean.
Doing great.
Yeah, thank you. It's my brain. So,
You're good.
oh my God, thank you. So, this is another one of my favorite examples of when we pay closer attention to things, it becomes easier to see the differences between them. When I was first learning my plants, I would get buttercup and avens mixed up all the time, and I would have to spend some time with the plant to, you know, looking at the other clues in order to be able to differentiate them. And then as I got more familiar with the plants and with the characteristics that I'm looking at to identify them, then now I can identify them with a glance. But it's yeah, depending on where you are already with your powers of observation, it could be a piece of cake or it could take a little bit of work, but it's worth it. I think it's good for your brain, even if you're not interested in identifying plants, to learn how to differentiate these subtle details. And I think it helps in all areas of life, you know, having a more detailed oriented brain. So I have put a little worksheet together for you. Here's the download link. And if I can find the chat, I'm going to also put it in the chat. It's just something I put together to help, kind of a cheat sheet that you could put in your journal if you wanted to bring it with you on our field trip later this month. And just basically it's a list of things to look for. And then inside the table is some examples of what you might find. These aren't all the options. They're just meant to trigger your thinking, to give you some things to think about as you look at each of these different parts of the grid.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then I wanted to share too, these are my favorite books for identifying plants. And I'll have my plants, my Lone Pine books with me when we go out later this month. Botany in a Day is really fun too. This has got a lot of history about plants, like how they started, which is fascinating. It's all hypothesis, of course, because there wasn't anyone around at the time to record it, but they think, or at least some scientists think, that it was a happenstance encounter between an algae and a fungus, I think, on land, where the fungus may have been trying to consume the algae but didn't kill it all the way, and somehow the two kind of merged. You can actually still find, now we all know about lichen, which is, you know, that symbiotic relationship between an algae and a fungus, but even our modern day plants have kind of vestigial fungal properties that I think lend to this hypothesis that that might be how plants got started. And one of those being how pollen actually pollinates plant, because when pollen hits the I need to look at my cheat sheet. When pollen hits the pistil, it creates this little hyphae, which is a fungal filament that connects, basically travels down the length of the pistil to the ovary to pollinate the egg, or to fertilize the egg. So anyway, there's a lot of really fun, if you're interested in this kind of thing, fun information in the Botany a Day, as well as a key to all the different plant families, and then nice descriptions of most of the plant families. Yeah.
Thomas Eipel also has a YouTube video called Botany in a Day that is
Oh.
delightful and very educational.
Awesome. I have to look that up. Thank you for bringing that up. Yay. All right. So I put together a few slides for us to practice sketching. The plants, they only, they're just the one photograph, so it's not really an opportunity to practice gathering all the details that I suggested in the presentation, but it's something to practice the flower itself. And yeah, they're all out of context, but we can at least practice looking at and replicating the shapes that we see on the screen. And I figured we do about 5 minutes per flower. Let's see, what time is it? 7:30. Oh yeah, we have plenty of time. Okay, so we'll do 5 minutes per flower. And if you have time, some things to think about capturing in each sketch is the shape of the flower. If you have colors and you want to try and match the color, that'd be fun. And then at least one observation about it, either something you notice, a question you have, or something that it reminds you of. And yeah, so let's see. Oh, I wanted to also mention, I put some examples up here. So I listed some plants in the dicot class that have 3 petals, and some plants in the monocot class that have 3 petals. And I haven't listed all of them. I tried to list the ones that we're most likely to see. And yeah, I think that was all yeah, okay. All right, so let's, I'm gonna go ahead and start my timer and then find my sketchbook because I forgot to pull it out. And then we can get started. 5 minutes. All right, and I'm gonna mute myself so you don't have to listen to me chatter. Okay, wrap up that line or that thought or that color really quick. Give that 30 more seconds, and then we'll move on to the next one. I'll need a little more time. Just wave your hand at me. All right, we'll go to the next one. Oh, I forgot to mention, it's all right here on the slide, but this is a trillium. This is a native plant. They are in bloom right now in my area, and they are in the lily family. Okay, so now our next person here is angled bittercress, also a native plant. Not in bloom yet. They're in the mustard family. And then we're going to go for 5 minutes. Starting now.
Julie, which family did you say the trillium was in?
Lily.
Really? Lily.
Lily. Okay, finish up your thoughts or your sketch. You wanting me to stay on the slide? Okay. Our next plant is the apple. It's a non-native plant, but it is in the rose family, and we have a lot of different species that are in the rose family here. So it's the flower is a good representation of the characteristics of this family. So we're going to go ahead and sketch this. So our previous two flowers, the first one was a 3-petaled flower. Then we looked at a 4-petaled flower. This one's a 5-petaled flower. And there are no 5-petaled flowers in the monocot class. And so if you see a 5-petaled flower, they are going to be a dicot. And there's a lot more families than the ones listed here that will have 5 petals. Yeah, but they all, besides the flowers, have characteristics within the family in the stem and the leaf. And all their other characteristics in the flower besides the petal that can help you differentiate between the families once you start to get to know the plants. Okay, I'm going to quiet myself and start the timer for 5 minutes. Okay, wrap up your sketch or your thoughts. Barbara, I was using the wrong terminology for lily for the trillium. The family is birth root. The suborder is lily. So lily is a broad category as well as an individual family. So thank you for asking about that. Birth root is the family for trillium. Okay, ready for the next slide? Right. So that was our 5-petaled plant. And now we are on to 6 petals. So something about 6-petal plants is that there are no 6-petaled plants technically. A lot of these plants that look like they have 6 petals actually have 3 petals, and then their sepals have adapted to look like petals also. So if you look at this plant, you'll see that if you look at this flower, you see there's kind of a triangle shape in the middle, and at the apex of each corner of that triangle is a true petal. And then those 3 larger petals that are around the outside, if you notice, if you take a look at the upper left-hand corner, you see there's a bit of green on one, and then the lower kind of left center, there's a little bit of green. Those are actually those leaves that were around the flower, the sepals, before it opened. And then they transform, or they started out looking like petals, so they add a little bit more show to the plant. So you're going to see these in the lily suborder, which includes iris. And don't think there are any dicots that do this. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure you're just going to see this in the monocot class. So, so this is a Star of Bethlehem. It's not a native plant. In fact, this can be a bit invasive in places. It's in the asparagus family, and I just happen to have one growing in my yard, and it was a good example of 6 petals and of the sepals, because you can see that green on the edge. So I wanted to share it with you. But if you see this in the wild, that it's not supposed to be there. So, all right, let's start the timer. Okay, wrap up your sketch or your thoughts. Ready for the next plant? I just realized they're getting increasingly more complicated. I should have like given a little bit more time for each plant based on the number of petals. All right, to our next one is a representative of the many or numerous petals. And this is dandelion, also a non-native plant. It's in the aster family. They are in bloom right now. They're not native, but they're a fabulous plant for the pollinators. So the plants that you see with numerous petals are going to be in the aster family, which is which is in the dicot class, and they're a little bit misleading. Like I was saying here on the slide, they're actually compound flowers, and so if you look in the center, you can see all the stamens, all the little pollinating, all the little was it anthers? Darn it. Anyway, the male parts of the flower are sticking out, but each one of those is represents a separate flower that are growing in this array. And you really get a good sense of this when the seed head opens onto dandelion, right? You have all those little wishes, right, that are attached individually to the seed head, and each one of those represents the seed or the ovary of a single flower on that group of flowers. So let's do like 7 minutes for this just to give us a little bit more space, and then we have one more flower after this one. Okay. Hey, are you ready for the next flower? Moving on to our final plants. Okay, this is a mountain lady slipper. This is a native species. And I forgot to put the family. Orchid. Yes. So this is in the orchid family. So this is our final one. I'm gonna mute myself and we'll do 5 minutes. Is that good? Or do you want 7 again? Okay, we'll go with 5.
When I was growing up, a lady slipper was a real find in the wild. And so when after we had moved here and I heard there was a wild lady slipper here, I looked for it for years and years and never found one. And then someone mentioned to me that it was the size of my thumbnail. And where I was from, they were big. And I was looking for a large lady slipper. Now I see them all the time, but all of a sudden it took me like 5 years before living here before I saw my first wild lady slipper, and it was only after someone told me it was tiny. Julie, do you know if the leaves that are in the picture go with the flower?
I believe so. They look right, but it has been a very long time since I've seen these in the wild or seen them at all. So, um, I can, oh goodness, hold on. I can look it up really quick.
God, I keep fat fingering the unmute. Don't worry about it. I have some photos from last summer. I'll look at them.
All right, go ahead and wrap up your drawing or your notes. It does look like they are the leaves of this plant, comparing to something I pulled up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Neat. I thought 5 minutes was going to feel like a luxurious amount of time after that session we did where we did each sketch in 1 minute, but 5 minutes was not enough. How are you all doing? How was that exercise for you? Does anyone want to share?
I enjoyed it. I'll share.
Hey.
I did them all but one. I missed one of them, but I did them all on one page. I kind of
Nice.
just kind of squeezed them all in there
Mm-hmm.
wherever they'd fit.
I love that. I love seeing them all on one page like that. Was there anything, Tiffany, that was something that you noticed or wondered or reminded you of that
Some of
stood
the
out?
facts are pretty interesting. I have a trillium in my backyard that is not quite bloomed yet. It is up, but it's very, very late. Some of these I'm not familiar with. Of course, dandelion I am, and the apple. But yeah, just interesting facts. And when I'm paying attention, of course, that helps a lot to be like, oh, I never really noticed that part before. But yeah, so that's always really good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. Hope, Barbie, you just muted yourself. you're still muted, Barbara. You were unmuted and then there you go.
There. I was pushing it the whole time like this, and it just wasn't doing anything. It needed 7 pushes. Apparently.
Yeah.
Tiffany, I'm sorry. Would you mind showing your page again?
Sure. Let me go ahead and do that.
Wasn't it you that just showed yours?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
So there's the top,
Uh-huh.
and then the middle and the bottom.
Thank you.
Since I did it in pencil, it's really light.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
did
hard to
too.
just show from a distance because then you really don't see much. But there it is.
Mm.
I can share mine if you want. If
Okay.
I don't want to step on anybody's toes though, if somebody else was gonna do it first. So just to review, I'm not a very experienced artist by any means, and and also plants are not really my bit. I don't have a whole lot of experience with plants, so to be honest, where was well, anyway, I'll just show you. So here's I don't have myself up on my view, so just tell me if I need to like change
That
where
looks good.
I'm holding this or whatever. But so here's my trillium.
Nice.
Let's see here. I wonder if all the trilliums get eaten by slugs, because whenever I see them, it seems like they're always just like droopy and half eaten by slugs, and it's rainy, and not always. I mean, like Trout Creek State Park is in my backyard essentially, and that's their whole thing, is the Trillium Festival every year. I swear every time I go there during Trillium season, I just see like half-eaten trilliums. So here's my angled bitter crest, and maybe you can see the apple at the bottom of it. Julie, is that a photo that you took of that apple blossom? Because that's so funny, because I could swear I have sketched that in my nature journal before, like that exact one.
Wow.
I mean, like just like the curling of the leaves was very similar, and I could probably find my other sketch and whatever, but I just found mine on the internet somewhere. Here's the Star of Bethlehem. Here's my dandelion, which, while very busy, this was actually my favorite one to do, because like I just knew I could only do so much. So I just kind of went for crazy. And also, I did a seed over here. This was from memory, basically. And then the leaf attempted from memory, because I've gathered many leaves for trying dandelion green salad and stuff. And from my memory, that is what the leaf looks like. It's not perfect, but yeah. And then this one was the really difficult one for me. And most of it had to do with these curling these curling petals. So yeah, that was super challenging for me. And I mean, the leaves I was trying to do the leaves as a background, and I didn't even quite get through them all. But these petals, I would like to say, remind me of, because this was like probably my strongest. I wonder, it reminds me of the whole bunch. Is anyone here familiar with dragon tongue beans? They're frequently grown for CSA shares, but they're kind of like green beans, only they're really long, and they are green with purple speckles, but then when you cook them, they turn like yellow. So,
Wow.
And then like they're so long that, of course, well, because I'm silly, I always like will end up putting one in my mouth and like pretending it's my tongue. But anyway, that's the petals of this really like reminded me, and also the speckles on honestly, if you told me, like, I know the basic parts of a flower, and if you told me, like, even calling these petals was like, oh, that's right, I suppose they're petals. So what's the yellow thing? Is that the pistil? What's the white thing? Like, I just don't even understand what the plant parts are on this flower.
That's a good question. I'm gonna ask the internet. I assumed that the yellow part was the ovary or the pistil, but that was just an assumption.
Well, I'm just not familiar with orchids and bromeliads in general.
Yeah. So this doesn't. The first thing that came up isn't the same kind of orchid, isn't the same structure as the one we're looking at, but the that lower part is called the lobellum on this image, which looks more like a store orchid. You know, it doesn't have a pouch like the lady slippers do. It also doesn't have that same yellow bit there. Huh. Oh, it says stigma. Yeah, so the female part, the stigma. No, wait, no, that's the male part. Okay, I'm gonna go back to that image because to me it looked shiny and wet, like
Yes, it was.
like the female
Seemed
parts, whereas
waxy.
the
Yeah.
yeah, and the male parts are usually have that powdery texture. Okay, where is my share screen button? Right there. Every time. Okay, so let me take a look at this again. Yeah, it looks waxy to me. All right, I'm gonna have to do more research myself and see.
So the white the pouch.
Yeah, that white part is a petal. And on the internet, it calls that particular petal the labellum. But like I said, the one that it's showing me is more of a landing pad as opposed to a pouch. So, yeah, so I'll do some more research on that and maybe do a sketch and post it later on the Facebook page. So thank you for asking questions about that. So parts of an orchid.
Maybe I'll find a photo of a dragon tongue bean.
Yeah,
and,
just look those up too. Those are really pretty.
they're pretty awesome. And it's unfortunate that when you cook them, they just like lose all of their interestingness. But
Yeah,
you know,
I love the strength of your lines. By the way, your sketches, to me, I know what you're drawing. I look at it and I can see exactly what you're. You know, I could tell what kind of plant it is by looking at your pictures. So
during our field trip, I talked about how at the Wild Wonder Conference, I decided to start using fountain pen for my sketches, basically to not be so precious about drawing, and it has 100% worked. Like, I just am like going for broke all the time, more or less. So it's great. Although I think I need to clean my pen. It's not working quite as well as I'd like it tonight, but
yeah. Does it smear when do you have to like keep your hand off the paper? Oh,
no, it depends on the paper that you use. I actually have like a sketchbook, which is like super absorbent. So if anything, I would have the opposite problem because any ink, and then plus also I usually use a fine nib. So like if I were using a double broad or something, that would be more of an issue because it just lays down a lot of ink or whatever. But
okay.
the finer a point, the more, quickly it dries or absorbs into the paper.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I just noticed that it's 8:30. I don't know how that happened. The last time I looked, it was 8. If anyone has to go, I understand, but if y'all don't mind staying a little longer, I'd love to see more sketches if you'd like to share, and also talk about our schedule for the summer. So, would someone else like to?
Mine are also in pencils, so they don't show up that well. So, but I did have some observations on the trillium, and mine are in bloom in the backyard right now. So they're really beautiful. One of the things I noticed is in your picture, that the white petals are so translucent that you can see the green behind them. And you have two sets of the green leaves. One is the tiny ones that are right underneath. And
yeah, the
in
sepals.
essence, they whirl around, so one comes evenly between each white petal. But then the big, luxurious leaves, which are the next layer down, are right behind the tiny leaves. They don't whirl again.
Mhm. Yes.
Anyway, oh, and I also noticed that the pistils and stamen, there's 3 each of those, which I thought was interesting.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Nice. Yeah, the
trillions,
number,
everything's in 3s.
yeah, yeah. The number of pistils and stamens is one of the characteristics you can use to help identify what kind of monocot you're looking at. But I didn't delve into that for this workshop. It was a little bit beyond my capacity this month. So yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing those observations.
Yeah, I'll darken my lines and then I'll post it with on the
Okay,
Facebook.
I'll go ahead and go see if it'll show up. I'm gonna take it off of blur. Blur, blur. You get to see my messy background. Okay. So there's my trillium
Oh, nice.
and my bitter cress and my rose.
Oh, your rose is beautiful.
Thank you. I've been, oop, I didn't let it dry all the way. I've been practicing with color, as I keep saying. So I've been trying to mix my colors so that I can practice that. So something I noticed with the dandelion was that in the center where the stamens were located, that the flower had a darker color, like more of an orange, which I tried to match. I thought that was neat. And this flower, every time I see it, for some reason, reminds me of Popeye. And I think, did the cartoon of Popeye, did he have like a really big jutting chin?
Yeah, he had that square
Okay.
jaw.
Yeah, I think it's like, why
Cartoonish.
do I think of Popeye every time I see one of these? And then that yellow part reminds me of the tongue, the way it just kind of lays out. It's kind of like lion's breath in yoga. Yeah. Anyone else
Really
like to
great.
share?
I'll share. I'm not sure if this will show up. This is the
Wow, you filled the page with it. I love that. There you go.
trillium, I think.
Yes.
And the apple.
Nice.
The bitter crush.
Hmm.
I don't know if that shows it off.
Yeah, you can see it.
The dandelion.
Nice. Oh my gosh, look at that detail.
That was really fun. I don't know, I just really got into that one.
Yeah.
And the Star of Bethlehem. I was fascinated with the apparent texture of that center.
Hmm. Me too. Yeah.
And try to do something with that. And
Oh,
I
nice.
just wanted to play with the color.
Like how you added some texture in the background. Nice.
Those are great. It was really
Mm.
fun to have to get.
Is that me
Thank
or
you.
is that? Oh, you're welcome. I think you broke up a little bit. But
Let's see.
okay. Thank you, Monia.
Okay. Am I last?
Hmm?
So I've never done this, so I just grabbed my watercolor pencils just to see what to do. But
You'll need to unblur your background.
okay,
Mhm.
there,
you go.
right?
Yes, now we can see it. Nice.
Julia.
Nice. Nice. I love your use of shading.
It's so dark here, I can't tell the difference between purple and brown. Oh well, it was fun. It was a good exercise.
Was there anything that's out for you for a notice or a question?
Nope,
Mm.
that was fun.
Awesome. All right, let me just wrap up the recording. Yes, I just wanted to finish with a thank you. There we go. Thank you. Ta-da! So, I'm going to stop the recording and